Update. My boyfriend and I had an argument that is giving me red flags. Is it enough to end our years-long relationship? Please advise. Original post. My boyfriend, 25 male, and I, 23 female, have been together for over 5 years and have lived together for 1.5 years now. For context, I was getting ready to go to a Halloween potluck with some of my girlfriends and their respective boyfriends. While I was getting ready, my boyfriend began discussing the idea of a curfew with me, explaining that no woman should be out late because nothing good happens late into the night, and that I shouldn't be out until 3 a.m. I explained that I didn't want to be out that long, but the idea of him putting a curfew on me made me uncomfortable. He told me that unless he is physically there with me, I, a female, shouldn't be out of the house late and at a party. I told him there was no need for him to be this controlling with me and that I was confused since he had never done anything like this before. I go to social events pretty regularly, but I rarely go to parties like this, maybe once every 3 months. He was also invited twice to come to this party with me and declined. I asked my boyfriend why he was saying all this, and he said, "I have standards. These are my standards. If you don't like them, you don't have to live with me anymore. I'm not budging on this." He then explained, "Now I expect you home at 1 a.m. because you're pissing me off, but I should be saying 11 p.m. This freaked me out. I packed a bag, went to my parents' house, and haven't been back since. I don't know what to do from here. I want to emphasize that he's never done anything like this before, which really threw me off, and is why I'm asking for advice on an internet forum. I left the house crying and upset, and my boyfriend hasn't reached out in over 72 hours to check in or initiate a conversation. Ideally, I would like him to start a conversation, but I'm convinced my boyfriend has no shame for his actions and believes I am the one in the wrong. Please let me know what you, an unbiased random internet stranger, think about this situation. I love the relationship my boyfriend and I have built together, but this seems like a huge red flag to me." Now for the top advice before reading the update. Girl, you're 100% right. This is a huge red flag. Multiple, actually. Him referring to women as females, putting restrictions on you, getting angry because you disagreed with him, punishing you because he's angry. You're probably right that he has no shame and thinks you are completely in the wrong, but that's okay. You're not going to be able to convince a guy this delusional. It is absolutely enough to leave your years-long relationship. If you stay, he will continue to try and exert more and more control over you, and you'll be stuck in an abusive relationship. It kind of sounds like he instigated this in order to cause a breakup. So after 5 years dating and 1.5 years living together, he announces a new standard to force you to move out of his place? I assume this was his place and you moved in with him? Weird and pretty rotten of him. I'm awfully sorry this is happening to you, but sounds like he dreamed this up to give you the boot. Yes, his parents own the place, but we both pay rent on it. Just not an official lease or anything. It genuinely didn't feel like he was trying to give me the boot, but more like he wasn't going to relent on this new standard of his, and that our place of living is something in his control, which is what he wanted in this situation. The fact that he hasn't reached out in over 72 hours is an equally big red flag. That's called stonewalling, and it will destroy a relationship. Run now. I'm going to deviate from the pattern here and ask, what sorts of media does he enjoy? Has he recently started listening to new podcasts or watching new creators on YouTube? Honestly, I have no idea. I think this is a great question to ask though, and could contribute to why his actions are suddenly changing. Just remember the answer to why doesn't change anything in terms of this being a huge red flag. You trusted your instincts and I do too. This is major wrong and quickly going down a dangerous path for you. The men in your life can always do the most harm to you, so you have to have confidence they love and respect you. This sounds like anything but that. Now for the update 8 months later. All of the events listed below occurred 8 months ago, around the time of the original post. This update is not easy for me to write, but I am moving out of state next week, and want to put this out to finally lay this chapter of my life to rest. The argument from the post occurred on Saturday late afternoon. I posted to Reddit a few days later after I hadn't heard from him. By Wednesday, I placed an order for a small U-Haul truck to move out the following Saturday, the soonest time my family could help. But I still hadn't heard from him. My family thought it best not to tell him that I was coming to pick up my belongings until the day of, because we were afraid he would destroy my things. My ex is an extreme minimalist, so all the furniture, decor, tools, etc. came 100% out of my pocket. At that point, I had thousands of dollars worth of belongings in there, and even more invaluable mementos. Anyway, Saturday comes around. Still hadn't heard anything on his end. I texted him that morning, telling him my parents were coming to remove my belongings and to please be out of the house while they did so. He texted me back, "No, stop telling me what to do." At this point, he knows they're coming and exactly when. For my safety, I stayed home. When my parents got there, my mother knocked on the door. No answer. Doorbell? No answer. I texted her to go into the garage and see if his vehicle was there. The garage opened, and he had thrown my belongings into the garage. Things were scattered about the garage floor. Whatever. They noted that his vehicle was there though, so he must be inside. My family started grabbing stuff from the floor and putting it into the truck. My ex comes out. My mother said he looked psychotic almost. He doesn't do drugs and wasn't drinking for health reasons, but he looked off. When he came out, he made it very clear to my mother that he was holding a gun in his sweatpants pocket. He told them to get off his property. My mother asked him if he was all right. Remember, he and I had been together for a long time at this point. My family knew him well. This was all such strange behavior from him, and my mother was genuinely concerned. In response, he told my mom, "I'm fine, why wouldn't I be?" My mom asked if she could go inside and get the rest of my belongings. He said no. My mother reminded him that I had been without my essentials for a week now: medication, glasses and contacts, work badge, underpants, and asked to step inside for 5 minutes to retrieve those things. He agreed. My mother walked into the house and saw an AR-57 set up in the kitchen, ready to go. She immediately turned around, told everyone outside loading the truck to get in the car, and went home. I spent the next few hours trying to arrange a police escort for the rest of my belongings. In hindsight, we should have done that in the first place. As I was working on that, my mom called the homeowners, aka his parents, who lived 2 to 3 hours away. We told them everything up to this point, and they were distraught. They said they were on their way. We received a call from the parents later that evening, stating that he was out of the house and being monitored back at their home. We moved everything out afterward. I got a text from him that Sunday, where he essentially said that he didn't know I was breaking up with him, that he was waiting for me to reach out to him while he was reflecting on everything that happened, blah blah. We went back and forth a bit, where I told him that he threatened my family and that I couldn't forgive him. He said he wanted to talk about everything, and I told him I wasn't ready for that. I followed it up with a "you should work on yourself, and if I want to talk, I'll reach out" type of text. He responded with a bunch of okays, and then "just don't f*** your ex, hate that guy, heard really bad things about him." He's referring to himself here, since he's the only boyfriend I've had. It was super strange and off-putting to receive a joking text like that when a few hours earlier he threatened my family with guns. I ignored him. He also sent an interesting apology to my mother. To me, it seemed like a liability thing that his lawyer mother asked him to send. Highlights included, "I know you felt threatened by what you saw, and there is no excuse for having guns out while people are present at my house. Seeing a gun, concealed or otherwise, in that sort of situation is enough to shock someone, especially those unfamiliar with these weapons. My parents agree and have asked me to give my guns up until I am more responsible and careful." And he texted me again the next day saying, "I know I've acted nonchalant about things, and it's not a good habit. I can't continue to live in limbo. I hope you will come over and talk to me in person. False hope is not doing me any good. I need to move on with my life." I responded, "I do not want to give you false hope, but I'm not in a place of forgiveness. I think it's time that we continue to move on with our separate lives." That's when he responded with, "Listen, come talk to me. I feel awful that I used your own love for me as a lever against you. I hate the person who did that to you, and every day I try to bury that part of me." Lots to digest there. We exchanged a few more texts, and I naively agreed to have a conversation in person. I would not have it at the house, it would be during the day, and it would be in public. I now understand that I should never have entertained this idea in the first place. I was emotional and confused at the time. I had been with him for years at this point and wanted clarity on what drove him to do this. I told him my availability to talk on a Thursday, and he said he wasn't sure if he was available but would let me know. I didn't hear back from him until Thursday at 8:15 p.m. when he asked, "You still coming or no?" A location hadn't been discussed. It was dark out. I suggested we meet the following morning. That's when he sent, "8:30 is late for you now?" Followed by, "I said your curfew was 1 a.m., so you're good. Just get your butt over here and talk. I am not doing this 9 a.m. BS, or I will put a scorpion in your bed." I responded, and he texted back, "I'm on my way." "I'm sorry, you're what?" At this point, I was in a new safe place in location A. My mother was in location B, and my father was in location C. I had to call everyone and let them know he was going to show up at one of their locations, since he knew where they both lived. He showed up at location C, where my father was. My father told me that he was scared for his safety at home. Luckily, nothing happened. He waited outside for a bit after texting me, "Here," and then left. This whole night rattled me. I stayed up all night, scared he was going to show up at my mom's place next, or mine. I ignored his texts. He started to call. He left an eerily calm, cool, and collected voicemail wondering when we were going to chat, saying that if I wanted to have that conversation, you are welcome to the house whenever. I texted him back, threatening a restraining order if he made contact again. A month later, he texted, "Hey, obviously what happened happened. I'm sorry I made you feel unsafe. That's not who I am as a person or who I would want to be. I wish you the best in whatever you do." And that is the last I've heard from him. All of this could have played out way worse. I'm relieved for the safety of my family and my own. I'm fortunate enough to have gotten out when I did. And yes, I understand things could have been done differently on my end. I learned a lot about myself through this experience. I chose to text him in the non-confrontational way I did for my safety. We live in a small community. I genuinely believe this man is dangerous and could harm my family, my dog, my friends, etc. if I angered him. We're all within a mile or two of each other, and he knows where to find all of them, and me, if he wanted to. I condensed some of the details for the sake of brevity in this post. I have screenshots of all the texts I quoted above if I ever need them. Yikes. I know we talk about dodging a bullet on these posts, but this lady and her family might have come much closer to literally doing that, or catching one, than a lot of the stories in the sub. I really hope Opie learns from this. After someone behaves like that, you don't need to meet up with them for a conversation. Send a clear and concise message, making it clear it's over and stop replying. When I was in university, one of my friends went home over the holidays to break up with her boyfriend there. He asked her to meet up with him in a parking lot, and he walked up and shot her through the window and threw a rose on top of her. That was 40 years ago, and I still think about that when people are dealing with breakups from people that are manipulative and controlling. I have no doubt this guy was going to hurt her if she showed up. Last story. My boyfriend has an expensive hobby, so we have to live very frugally, and it's starting to bother me. I'm not sure what to do. My boyfriend, 41 male, and I, 39 female, have been together for about a year. He's a caring and considerate partner. However, he lives very frugally to be able to afford his expensive hobby. He loves to sail, and between the costs of financing his boat, which he purchased before we met, fuel costs, insurance, marina fees, maintenance, etc., I would estimate that it creates over $3,000 each month in expenses. This comes out of his disposable income, so he's not asking me to pay for any of it, but it's not an interest I share. I don't particularly like being on boats. I think sailing really gives him a lot of peace and a sense of pride. We mostly split expenses, and I don't live a particularly expensive lifestyle. I don't have a huge desire to visit fancy restaurants, and I'm happy taking a weekend road trip instead of some big international trip. So for a while, it didn't bother me that he spends so much on his hobby. He is also very conscientious about saving. So he saves a large portion of his income as well, and I support him wanting to build his savings. However, we don't currently live together, partially because of how frugally he chooses to live in order to afford his hobby. He has a tiny condo and no car, though I have a car. He eats very simply. If we were to move in together, we'd need to move into a smaller apartment than I'd prefer. We live in an expensive city, or move somewhere else, or he'd need to save less. If it were up to me, we'd spend more on activities, splurge from time to time, and get a decent-sized apartment, etc. However, he's not really on board with those expenses, except on holidays, like a birthday or something. We still go out to do stuff, but obviously he prefers inexpensive/free local events, which I also enjoy, but it would be nice to do other stuff too. If I want to go to a pricey concert or to the theater or do a spa day or whatever, I'll generally end up doing that stuff with friends. He's someone who is willing to compromise on things, but I don't even know what to ask him for. Sell his boat? He had it before we met. Stop saving? That sounds like I'm asking him to be irresponsible. I could offer to pay for more stuff, but I think that would create a very bad relationship imbalance, especially when he makes more than I do. Honestly, I'm not sure what to do. I feel like a jerk asking him to give up his hobby, or like I was being immature telling him not to worry so much about saving money. Dump him? He's honestly a great guy. At the same time, it seems silly that our lives are so limited when both of us have okay income. I'm not sure what to do here, or maybe I should just be happy he's a good guy. Now for the advice. Can you imagine a version of your lives together where you would both feel happy and satisfied? I'm not asking about the mental arithmetic of, I can't break up, he's such a nice guy, or I shouldn't care about having nice things, or it's not reasonable for him to expect that, or it's not fair for me to expect this. What do you need to feel happy? What do you believe he needs to feel happy? And is there a possible overlap? This is a great and insightful answer or question. He's 41, and he's choosing to spend around $35,000 a year on his boat. And that's fine, and that's the thing that makes him happy. But that sort of closes the door on living together, having kids, traveling, etc. You have to be truly okay with this, or figure out some middle ground that works for you both as a couple, or move on. The thing about starting to date someone when they're 40 is that they're already pretty set in their ways. Meaning if you made him choose between you and the boat, he'd probably choose the boat. Not just because it's his method of self-care, but for the philosophical reason that people don't generally want to have partnerships with those who don't accept them as they already are, sailing hobby included. But if he's able to swing having the boat, contributing to a retirement account, and still has money to put into savings each month, it's probably the portion he's putting into savings that he might be willing to compromise on. If he owns this tiny condo, he might also think about renting it out when he moves in with you, thus giving him a little more money to work with. So maybe figure out what it would realistically cost for the two of you to live together. Then present your figures to him, cut them in half of course, and ask him if he thinks he could cover that. He's highly unlikely to give up the boat, but maybe there are ways to get what you want, without demanding that he give up what he wants.